Welcome back everyone to the next part of this video series, Fundamentals of Facebook Ads. Today we're going to focus on what are the different components of the Facebook ads and what we need to pay attention to. The objective of this course right now is to be able to understand how we're going to combine the different elements in order to end up with winning ads after we go through the data and iterations. So what are the different components of the different elements of a Facebook ad? And we've got headlines, ad text, obviously the image or the video that we're going to use, the URL, which is your landing page, is the final destination that the user is going to be taken to in order for them to be display the landing page that's within the funnel of where this ad campaign is going. The funnel that we're going to use throughout this course, and the one that I use, is really broken down into three different sections. Those are obviously going to be covered in a course coming up, but to touch on them is the top, middle, and bottom of the funnel. And we have to think of it as the top is where we're looking for people who are our target audience and that responds to our message. Once we start filling the top of the funnel, we're able to matriculate those people that become leads into paying customers, and that's done through the middle and the bottom of the funnel. So whenever we describe ads, we have to think of the elements that are within that ad and then how they fit within the funnel. So in each and every one of these, it's going to have the same seven elements in each one of the ads that we're going to produce. And our job is to take each one of these elements, these 7 elements, and to put different variations on them. So let's start off with looking at how we would, on the top of the funnel, come up with our headlines. Okay, so this is the first step, or the first element of 7 is the headlines. So here you can see that there's multiple headlines that we have come up with that we tested to see which one of these performed better, and obviously with this many headlines we were able to find quickly the ones that worked. I won't go into which ones work because that's really not the focus of this right now, which that's really the purpose of data and the analysis of it. So whenever we build a campaign, the idea is to never really fall in love with what you come up with, because what you come up with does not matter to your audience. What matters to them is a message that is received, that is understood, that is simple, and that targets a pain point that they're having, a frustration, something that they need solved. And obviously the reason why we're in business or we're providing a product or service is to be able to provide a value to them in order to solve a pain point. So here we're pinpointing different ways of people that have wrinkling, they have wrinkling concerns, aging concerns, maybe they have some sunspots, whatever. So obviously, our audience target on this is pretty obvious, and that's to get later on into. But for now, the idea behind it is within each of these elements that we have a lot of areas that we can try to say the same message but say in different ways in order to see which resonates with our audience best. And really and truthfully, every ad campaign that you produce, especially in the beginning, you have no idea what's going to work and what's not. You can have certain ideas within an industry, yes, but how they're going to respond not only to the ad elements within the ad campaign, but to the call to action, to the landing page, and then how they're going to matriculate in it. Are they good buyers, or are they just really bad leads to gather? So it really whenever you look at any of these things, the simple basic building blocks of any campaign is going to come down to the different elements within each of the 3 core components in our model to generate sales. So once again, let's go back to this. we used a lot of different headlines. Out of these headlines, we probably produced 3, 4 that were top winners within the audience segments, and that drove a solid ROI in this campaign. Let's go ahead and get into the middle. We might as well. This is will be touched on in this course, but the middle of the funnel is where we're now taking, instead of pinpointing a pain point, something that is motivates the user to take action, on something that they've never heard of. And in this campaign, keep in mind, the top of the funnel, we were simply just trying to get people put on. We weren't really collecting emails. We were just putting our tracking pixel onto them so we could retarget them both on AdWords and on Facebook. And it drove a very solid ROI. So this is the top of the funnel. We're just looking for people who would be into our product. And we're looking at them through interest, target, audience segmenting, a lot of things that we did. And we drove a really solid ROI. I can't remember exactly what we were, but that's not really the point of this video. But in the middle of the funnel, we then start introducing them on the headline section. We start introducing them to the actual product. And we start doing the same thing. We start running the same tricks, same verbiage, I guess you could say. And it's all about wordsmithing here. You're taking the same thing, but you're wanting to try it in different ways, because words mean things to different people at different times. And especially when you start, getting into pinpoint audience segmenting, like say age groups, 52 through 54 on this, and you're segmenting every 2 years, different ways that you say these, same things, it really it causes a big difference. And middle of the funnel, not to get into that too much, but middle of the funnel is more of retargeting. And this is where, once again, we have our tracking pixels installed. We'll get into that later. Hopefully, that's not something we really need to touch on, especially the installing side too much on this course. I think that's going to be a little more basic. But you can see how we're changing the way that we're doing things. We're drawing them back in with more, interest piece articles. Now we're starting to talk about, the actual product here, STEM. And what we did at the top of the funnel is we had an article that was, some crazy trick, miracle exposed, something catchy, snazzy, that we brought them in, and we had an article, 800-word article, where at the bottom of it we had our recommended products, and of course we had the product that we're selling here ranked above name brand products. There was recognition of brand name, and then we had ours obviously at the top, and that was really well defined, and it produced very good results in this campaign. And it's a great way of doing information or informative type marketing, where there's a slow matriculation process. It's going to be, but also at the same time, when you onboard someone for this type of product, you're looking at being able to generate revenues, 6, 9, 12, 24 months. So there's the lifetime value, the LTV of someone in this niche. The middle of the funnel, once again, headlines. Just we're using the same things that we did up here. Results, compelling, tried, tested. All these catchphrases that work on this audience. We've used it along with the product. Obviously, the people that clicked on our retargeting ads in the middle of the funnel were then brought down to the bottom of the funnel, which is, these are not necessarily the headlines here. Well, some of them were, not all of them. But these were the incentive, buy now, buy one, get one, BOGO. Buy two, get one free, stuff like that. Save now, instant coupon, good for 24 hours. All these things, used together, it makes up the different headlines that we tested at each one of the stages in the funnel within this. So now that we've covered the headlines, we can start looking at a little bit of the ad text. And since we've got this already published on this document for the middle of the funnel, this is what goes into the actual the text part above the image, above the ad. And I don't know if we need to get a reference on that, but we'll certainly get into that in a minute. Let's just understand that each one of these is where we're filling in information. So here we've got a lot of different things, and this is, once again, this is text that's going into the middle of the funnel. So these are retargeting campaigns that are targeting people that have already clicked through and completed the funnel process at the top of the funnel. So in each one of the stages, we have text that's going to be compelling towards the headline and being able to bring the user to make have them do a certain action. And it changes. And, once again, the idea that we have to keep in mind, the process we have to keep in mind is we don't need to fall in love with one thing. We need to take it and we need to try different things and let our audience return it back to us how well they like it based on our KPIs, which KPIs stands for key performance indicators, which, is basically every metric that we use to measure a campaign, such as click-through rates, CP, which is what we'll call CTR, click-through rate. We have cost per click, also known as CPC, and then we have a CPL, which is our cost per lead, which obviously is, for most of us, is going to be our priority number one. What is it costing us to bring in a lead that's going to complete the action on our page with a good relevancy score, audience targeting dialed in, headlines, ad text, images. Without really this, without getting into that, let's look at images. Images, this is important because Facebook, Instagram, it's image based, and the idea of an image, in my opinion, is to stop someone, to get someone to take notice, to take pause, because think about what people are doing on Facebook. People are more than likely on Facebook, if they're on their desktop, maybe at work, maybe they're a little bored, they got a few minutes, they're going to kill it, they just want to see what's going on. They're going to check something out. Maybe they just want to see what their friends are doing, who knows. Then you have people that are traveling to work, maybe they're commuting, any method. So they've got time where they whip out their phones and they're going to, check out Facebook. Most people do, at least for 5-10 minutes a day. So the idea of our ads, and especially our images or even videos, and video advertising is great. It has purpose. And this is going to be a good, this is going to have to be another topic, but whether or not we're running videos at the top of our lead funnel or not, it really depends. And it depends on the business, and depends on the goals, and depends on the price points. It depends on a lot of things, whether the audience is actually on Facebook. And that, once again, could be a whole other subject. But for now, let's focus on finish out these. So for each of the campaigns that I run, I usually include 4, 6, 8 images per campaign set. And, overall, I want to test 30, 50 images. Images are so important here, and each one of them can be received differently. So when I run campaigns, I'm always running multiple images, along with multiple ad text and multiple headlines. Now, the question is, how many do I run per time? So let's let's finish it out real quick. The URL in this case is the final destination that we're taking the user. Now, we have two options here. If we're using a platform like ClickFunnels, which we'll discuss later on, because a lot of people that are using ClickFunnels, even I'll use it now because it's easier, it's quicker, especially when you're trying to go through the different element iteration process, kind of like we're doing here, by combining different headlines, different calls to action, etc. So everything that we do is backed by trying multiple ways of doing it. And only by doing that and letting it run for a couple weeks, depending on your ad budget, you've got to give it time to build up. So URL in this instance, if we're running ClickFunnels. ClickFunnels is going to handle the routing of the different, say we have 2 variants on a landing page. ClickFunnels is going to automatically handle that for us. Now let's say we've developed our own software, we're using WordPress, and we're just spitting out different landing pages. If we were to do different landing pages, we're going to have to test 2 different URLs here. But if we're using a routing software, we're doing a routing that's going to be on the client side instead of on the Facebook side. Then obviously we can just use one URL, and that's usually standard. That's usually how I usually run it. I will test multiple URLs. It just depends on what software we're using, and if I want to test different funnels, you name it. That's kind of what I use the different URLs, on Facebook. And the display link, without getting, without having to pull up examples, I don't have you on this text sheet. Let me see if I, 1 second. Second. Get through this. All right. So while I'm pulling this up, let me pull up one of the campaigns I've just run. Make it easy. Do this one. Okay. So this is some campaign language that I ran. This is the different headlines. This is for like top of the funnel. Okay. All right. So these are the different headlines that we ran. These are the different ad text. All this stuff right here is different ad text that we used. Some of the stuff, there was one long ad text in here, and I don't have it broken down well yet, but on this. But here's the link text that we used for this. Link text is, and you run variations of everything you do. So here we did 2 different variations of the 90-minute seminar to see which one converted best, which one resonated, and just let the data guide you on that. So that aside, let's see, the URL for this. This was this is the URL that we're using along with some identifiers. Let's see we're using some UTM source code here. So that's the dashboard. Why not? Okay, so this is the landing page that we took people to. It's got it's a little bit of a long format for me. I mean, I don't mind having longer form, but here usually, in my opinion, I like running really short ones that are simple one-page splashers especially on the front end, and for a lot of different products and services, because we want to be able to use something that gives the user less options on the landing page side, and that'll be it in front of the video. So for now, let me pull this back up. Where did it go? Okay. So the display link can obviously be multiple things. I usually, for campaigns, 2 per campaign would be the most I would test on the display link side. I'm sorry, not display link description. Now, the display link is simply whatever URL that you're using. So let's say you're using, something like generic ClickFunnels at joeblow.com / LP1 or LP1 something like that. If this is your final URL that you're taking users to, and obviously it'd be something like this, HTTPS, something like, or maybe even something like that. But what you would do here is you're simply looking at, this is the display link right here for this. So you would put it in right here, just like that. Now, if you don't have it listed like this, let's say you're not using ClickFunnels, you're using your own website, so you haven't taken the www out yet, which is fine. And of course, I'll look it up. The display link can be as such. You cannot have a different display link than you have in your URL. So if you're trying to send, if you're trying to do some sneaky stuff like some redirects, let's say, and you're not using redirect software. Let's say you're trying to run it direct to the link or something like that. Like it's Walmart.com/XYZ. And you're trying to put in, or let's say you're running it to joeblow.com and you're trying to put here in the display link so you can trick folks and make them think, hey, this is Walmart. This is a solid business. I know this is. You can't use a different display link than what you're using in the URL. So most of us should know that already, but the link description we've already gone over. Now the calls to action, we have several. And the most common are going to be learn more, download, watch more, sign up, stuff like that, or contact us. I mean, there's over a half a dozen of them. Calls to action, yes, they're important. I like to test out multiple ways, especially when you're running videos. You don't want to necessarily which one's better. Learn more, watch more. You'd be surprised, and even not even running videos where you've got them running, say, a campaign that's got an image that's image based, and then you're running and dropping them off to this right here to talk about your free video guide. Right? Watch more is certainly suitable there as well. And I know for this campaign, why I'm pointing this out, because watch more worked out better for this campaign for everything that we did. And that was in multiple U.S. speaking, or not U.S., English speaking countries. All right, so there's different ways, different calls to actions. I like to use at least two. I really don't want to go crazy and use like 3, 4 of them in a campaign unless I'm running maybe just one headline, one ad text, maybe 1 or 2 images, nothing crazy up top, because you don't want to. The more you load up here, let's say you write, XXX headline, XXX headline, and then you've got 3 headlines, right? Here in your ad text, you've got, blurb 1, blurb 2, blurb 3. So when you do this, these 3 combinations are going to be combined with these 3 combinations, and you're looking at running multiple variants of the same thing. So you're looking at which combination is it, the first, second, or third headline paired with, say, the first, second, or third ad text. Well, that's why using software or reading the Excel sheets or whatever it is that you do to see which is working based on the KPIs, again, key performance indicators, on which is working best here. So it boils down to, now, keep in mind, this campaign can have multiple images. So now you've now taken these 3 ad texts, these 3 headlines, and multiplied it on top of these images here. So now you're looking at 200 plus ads that are running here. And that's running off one URL, one display link, and probably one call to action. Yeah, because you're not going to be able to squeeze in a lot more on that unless you're going to run at a much higher, at a much higher variation. For these, I don't really like to go too overboard. I mean, certainly you can do different combinations here, and that's kind of one little trick. What I like to do is look at, like, say, for example, the headline. Let's say headline 3, ad text 2, and image 3 work best with each other. Well, okay. What I'll do is I'll take out these other. I said 2 and 2, hopefully. So that's what I'm going to delete. So you get the idea. So I've taken those 2 out. Now I'm running these and with this image. Now, this is, once again, once you find these combinations up here that work really well together, this is where you can branch out and you can run even more image sets. So let's say that's what we want to do next. So we're running tons of new images, right? Well, again, we're going to repeat the same process of taking, this headline, this ad text, and this different variant of the image or the video that we're using, and we're going to find which in our audience responds best to this. Now, in our audience can mean a lot of things, and we'll get into that in a different video. But the idea behind it is to space it out. I like to space it out by year, 5-year increments, 6-year increments, 2-year increments. It depends on how big your audience is. Certainly starting out, you want to cast your net wide so you can start seeing where the schools of fish are. Once you find out where those schools of fish are, which your data is going to return after you've dialed in your ads. And what I mean by that is finding after all these multiples have been done, let's say after all this time, we found that the last image worked best with with these combinations. Again, you repeat your process. Take this headline, take this exact headline, and spin it 3, 4 different ways. See what your results are with this image. If your results are less than which, and this is based on, when you do this, you want to create multiple, I like to create, initially I'll create one. I want to see who my audience is, which message is working with them, and, kind of what I'm paying on the CPC and what I'm getting on my click-through rate side. If I'm getting less than a 1% click-through, I'm concerned. If I'm getting, over, especially initially, if I'm getting over, if I'm paying over $4, $5 on the CPC side on the initial campaign going out, maybe I'm looking, but it's no concern because I know I can turn off different combinations of headlines or of ad text or of images to be able to drop it down. If I'm not, I kill it off. I mean, as simple as that. I mean, that's one thing that a lot of people probably don't think about is, whenever I'm creating a campaign, I'm not just creating one campaign here. I'm creating multiple. I'm creating a lot of campaigns, and that's very obvious when you look at really, kind of this right here. This account right here. Let me put it up here so we're not. There we go. You can see the whole thing. This campaign, I've run multiple iterations, and we started out a long time ago. We've even created campaigns that we never even really ran, and it's because that was based off of campaigns that we're running and the results we were getting off of them. So for these campaigns, for this whole, this is at least 45 days worth of work, I would say, of going over it. But these are all the different iterations that we've gone through, looking at different audiences, different countries, and then taking what works, out of say 3 or 4 of those campaigns, and when we see what works, you take that, you can go ahead and replicate it over, use the winning combinations of our headlines. So say these are our winning combination. This is our winning headline. This is our winning ad text. This is our winning image. Now let's test it against a different audience. Let's now try a lookalike audience. Now let's try, segmenting, a different age group that we may have noticed in our data. There's a lot of ways to do it, and the process never really ends, because even when you kick up a campaign, it's going to have a lifespan. It's going to only be able to hit so many people, and it depends on your audience size. And when you're dialing in a campaign, especially initially, you have to do a trade-off between wide and narrow, and it all again boils down to the answer of depends. It depends on the situation, the industry. It depends on the numbers, especially once we get data back. There's a lot of things, and the only way that you can run a campaign is by going through all these different iterations, so that you're ending up with, say, these top campaigns that are running out of all of these. So again, the idea behind it is, we're looking to drive, effective cost per leads, and we're looking at doing it, both on targeting on our Facebook side. Once we have a campaign dialed in, let's say we start off with 200. Let's say we start off with 200 ad sets in a campaign, which is easy to do. So in these ad sets that we have here, you can see that I've got them dialed in for different age groups, 34 through 36, as long as the different channels: mobile, Instagram, desktop feed, and some of these are not yet on the desktop feed and stuff like that. They're not delivering right now, but get those off. But you can see here that 34 through 36 on this campaign so far, which has only been running for maybe a week, is generated 60 leads. At a moderate budget of 25 a day. Obviously when these things start out, we have to dial them in. So when you go from top to bottom, you can see how many different ads that we are running in each of these sets. So, out of these, we have, out of what, 1, 2, 3, 9 ads that we have inside. We're looking at running, this is the most popular one, and this is the one that we're looking to provide, the cost per lead. Now, you can make an argument and say, hey, well, look at this one. This one did pretty well as well. Why aren't you running with it? Well, a lot of these were pretty early on, and once we start getting into what's, we dial in for what's producing, and obviously as we're, increasing the ad budget or manipulating with it, the cost per lead is going to change. So here, obviously, I would say looking at this, I mean, the reach, is very small on these other campaigns. Why they were turned off, that's a decision that I would have made based on, the different combinations of ad text, headlines that I'm seeing initially out the gates. And we'll get into how we do that later. But the idea is that you take all these different combinations and you drill it down to the one that's going to work for you. And when you have one that's producing leads, we know consistently what we're getting. It makes it pretty easy to run with in this age group. So we have different age groups that are running, and obviously we're targeting different, age groups in the 40s. I mean, you name it. So it's a lot of different things. So for now, the fundamentals. Let's recap on this. The fundamentals or the different elements of the ad campaigns that we're going to run consist of your headline, your ad text, your image or video, the final URL to where you're taking the visitor to, along with the display link that matches up with the final URL that you're taking the visitor to. Here it doesn't. Link description is, what I showed you earlier, and the call to action is one of these, different buttons that we have on the ad. So what we're trying to do is we're looking at combinations, and I can't give you which combinations work. All I can tell you is that the idea of coming out the gates is kind of like a fund manager. Think of a fund manager in a portfolio stock, portfolio management company. What's his job? His job is to look at the different sectors, kind of like we're doing here with the elements of an ad campaign. Say, well, I'm going to diversify myself out into 30 different funds here, and I'm going to cut my losers and keep my winners, and and repeat the process and keep cleansing over and over and over again. Same thing here. And by the process of doing this, you will find ad campaigns that you can lead, you can run for a little bit, but the debate is how long can you let them run. And I've never left an ad campaign running, over a week or even 3 or 4 days, 5 days without looking at it and reviewing it and tuning it, because there's always going to be things that's going to change. Change is continuous in this, so you have to be as well. But think of it in terms of how you're going to take multiple combinations, and the idea that you can find one image that you just fall in love with is ludicrous. You've got to be able to take multiple images. I mean, and try them all. I mean, everything. You've got to think that failure is what leads to our success here. It absolutely does, because even if you take a campaign that generates no leads, but let's say you spent $50 over the past 3 days on it, 4 days. Okay, you're running at $15, $20 a day, some small. But what you're able to get back is, I know from this, I know which of these combinations work and what's the cost of it. Not only that, but I'm going to be able to start looking at the age groups that people have, interests that we're targeting. I'm going to be able to look at behaviors that we're targeting, such as purchasing behaviors, subscription service purchases, whether it's business or B2B, B2C, stuff like that. We can get into. I'm looking at the placements, which is mobile, desktop. You got your right column, your audience network, and you got Instagram. I didn't write those. We just added right column here, so let me put a feed. So anyhow, and you're looking at which one of these is going to work here, and I would say that it depends. B2B stuff, desktop, feed, right column, it's got its place in the funnels, but so does mobile. Mobile is, everybody's on mobile. I would say 60-70% of our Facebook or not of our Facebook, but of Facebook traffic, I would say, is on mobile nowadays, especially with the younger generation. They're primarily on mobile. Now, it can be argued that people 45 plus are going to be more likely to have desktops or laptops, even tablets, so they're not going to be looking on their phones much because maybe say that they have eye trouble and they can't see at that distance, whatever, it doesn't matter. But it depends on where you're at in the funnel, and different placements can lead to different quality of leads. And again, it's all dependent. Everything depends on the variables that you put into it. So if you're putting in variables such as B2B or B2C, you're putting in variables such as is this a service, and which industry that you're in, tons of variables. So you're looking at how do you take all these things from running these variables in your ads, and how do you take these different elements, first off, by taking these different elements and testing them against different audiences? How can you find which of these is going to work? And the answer is you've got to go through several iterations. It takes at least a couple weeks to dial in, I would say, running, especially if you're running at like a $50 a day budget, because you're going to want to space them out, $15, $20 a piece, and start running them and start getting back what the data is telling you, and then dial from there. We've covered a lot in this, and we're certainly going to cover more in our other videos, and we'll get more in depth, especially when we start building these campaigns. But for now, understand that the idea is to test lots, test everything, test as much as you can, and where you can control this whole game is right here in these elements, especially in these elements. And then also landing pages. And your landing pages, you control a lot. And in the next video of the series, we're going to look at landing pages where we're able to use, take and iterate through multiple headlines on just that landing page to take it from an 18% conversion rate on the top of the funnel now to like a 60. And to do that, we had, I simply sat there and manipulated the headline and the ad text, which is what it looks like here. And this is what is our winner from what the data tells us. Free guide with brackets, eBay drop shipping secrets, free video guide on how I sell over $6,000 everyday drop shipping products on eBay. So here, we're still using, enter your name, and then we found that, enter your best email address works really well. So, a lot of times, even on these top funnel, splash pages where we're using to capture lead information of who might be interested in our type of product, which in this case is a course on drop shipping products or eBay drop shipping. And, this gets really into the next one, but this is where you can, once again, these are elements here. So we might want to, in the future, take out, enter your name, and just have enter your best email address. And let's see if we can't take it from a 60 to a 70 to an 80% conversion rate, which is going to reduce our cost per lead, our CPO, which is in the name of all of this stuff. And when you combine all the components and elements of building a successful campaign to convert cold leads, it all adds up in order to calculate into the ROI, which is return on investment. So you have no control over what the user does necessarily. You can only control based off of what you're seeing, how they respond to what you're putting up for them. So everything's an element. You control your ad element, and you control your landing pages. You control your email information. Your email templates, your sequences, how you A/B split test everything. Even this, it's everything, just constantly. So going back, let's recap real quick. Facebook ad elements. We're looking at these different variables right here. Let me delete out everything so that we keep it real simple. Just take these up here at the top. Okay. So we have our headlines, our ad text, images or videos, multiples here. You can even do multiple videos. URLs, which is the final landing page that we're going to send the viewer to in order to complete an action that we want. Display link, which is taking the URL final and using that within the copy. You don't have to use it. I mean, not everybody does. It's not, I think it's optional. But the link description, we use this here to further inform our viewers of this, of what to expect of the article. What is their pain point? And that's what we'll get into in other videos, is the pain points that we write on. And that's how we focus our ads. So, calls to action that we have multiple ones that we can use. And then obviously we're looking at hitting so many different ways of looking at how the data runs. Interest groups, your ages, everything on the audience side, which we'll cover later. But for now, these are the main elements of the Facebook campaigns. And this completes this training series.